Hello and welcome. I'm Seth Manfield, and we're going to be doing some Modern today with the London Mulligan rule. And the deck I'm playing is Cheerios, okay? This is a deck that I was testing pretty hardcore for the last Mythic Championship because I was pretty close to playing it. It's super fun, it's explosive, it wins quickly, turn 2, turn 3, like pretty consistently. It's based around 0 mana artifacts, so we've got a bunch of those. Most of them are equipments, along with the 4 copies of Mox Opal. So we've got 18 equipments in the deck, and 4 Moxes. The Moxes allow you to get additional mana on those turns where you're comboing off, which is super important. Only 15 lands, low land count, because honestly, when you're comboing off and drawing a bunch of cards, sometimes you just can't afford to draw many lands off the top, so you have to play not very many of them. Noxious Revival gives you some redundancy, like sometimes you can return and retract to the top of your deck, or just sometimes you just have to keep a 1-land fetch land hand. You can fetch, then return the land, so, or against discard. It's just a flexible card. We've got our 8 bounce effects, 4 repeal, 4 retract. A lot of the times you're just returning your 0 mana artifacts, replaying them, drawing more cards. Now, the deck is built around these 8 creatures. The 4 copies of Sram Senior Edificer, 4 copies of Puresteel Paladin. You need one of those in play to really do your combo, which is to just play a bunch of artifacts, and then eventually you play an artifact, you cantrip, then you return them all, and you continue. Now, if you have, like, say, a Sram and a Puresteel Paladin, all of your equipments are now cantripping twice, which makes it a lot more easy to win in a single turn. And then the way you just actually kill your opponent is the Grapeshot, so you can make a red off the Mox Opal. You don't actually need a Sacred Foundry or anything like that. You can just make a red off Mox Opal, or sometimes Paradise Mantle allows you can equip a creature with that, and then just Grapeshot your opponent for 20 or more than 20. The Mentor is here. Sometimes you have to go to alternative win conditions, and that's what that's for. And then this list of mine is kind of unique, and the reason why it is because of the 3 copies of Reverse Engineer. So against those matchups where your opponent has more disruption, you're going to really be happy that you can just draw a bunch more cards. And it also allows you to sometimes keep hands without a Puresteel or Sram in them. So yeah, I've liked the Reverse Engineer as an additional card draw. Moving on to the sideboard, a lot of times these cards just don't get sideboarded in. It just depends on the matchup. Path to Exile is for your creature-based decks like humans. Silence is good against control so that they can't interact with you when you're comboing off. Another copy of Reverse Engineer, primarily for the discard matchups. Hercule's Recall is great against any like Chalice decks or just artifact decks in general. Tashar, so you can play a Tashar and then play an artifact to get back a creature that, like a Sram or a Puresteel, that your opponent may have used a removal spell on. It's also converted mana cost 4, which means it gets around cards like Inquisition of Kozilek. Monastery Mentor comes in those grindier matchups against control, against discard. Fragmentize is great against any of your artifact or enchantment style decks. And then Forge Tender comes in against Phoenix because of all of their red removal, and then burn style decks. So anyways, yeah, this is the deck. I think it's a pretty good deck. Check out these videos, and stay tuned. Please do. Alright, so opening hand, we don't have one of our creatures. We don't have a Sram or a Puresteel Paladin, and we don't have really much going on. Double Mox Opal. I'm going to ship that one back. Now, this next hand we have a Paladin, and we have some artifacts, so I definitely like this one. The Reverse Engineer could be good to get us some more cards, but it's kind of hard to figure out exactly which card we want to put back with this hand because they all can be useful. We don't know what the matchup is. This choice is pretty tough because if we draw another equipment, like the retract is basically a reverse engineer. I guess I'm gonna put back reverse engineer. If I knew this was a matchup where our opponent was likely to have removal for our paladin, I would definitely, or like discard, I would definitely keep the reverse. But these are our combo cards, so like it's fairly likely, considering the amount of equipments in our deck, that we just play Puresteel on 2, play the shield, and then play another equipment. Then we can play Opal, retract, and draw a bunch more cards. So, yeah, Tron is... That's fine because they don't really have great ways to interact with what we're doing, especially in game 1. They can just, I mean, they're on the play. They can just play a turn 3 Karn, which is what we don't want to see, but... So, between the Puresteel and the Sram here, we're definitely going to play one of them. I'm going to play Sram just in case our opponent has a spot removal spell there. Unfortunately, we did not draw any more artifacts, so that's going to make things more difficult. Luckily, they don't have the turn 3 Tron. They have turn 4 Tron. So let's see what we can do on our next turn. This is difficult. We could reverse engineer. If we do that, there's a chance our opponent just plays Oblivion Stone and cracks it. We could play Puresteel and then retract, which allows us to get 2 more cards, and we can potentially combo off this turn if we do that. It's probably the play. There's a chance that I just wasn't supposed to play the shield last turn, so that we could potentially have 1 more draw this turn. All right, I'm gonna try this and see where it gets us. It does make us. It makes us more vulnerable next turn potentially if we don't win the game. Then the revival is good. So we drew well. So I think there's a decent chance we're gonna get to combo here. And so what we can do is we can just revival the retract. Our opponent already used their relic, so we're gonna get a draw here when the sigil comes into play off the Puresteel. We can get the retract back to our hand that way. Play Opal, still have 3 artifacts. Or not still have 3 artifacts. I should say now we have 3 artifacts. Use the retract, and now we get to keep going with a bunch more extra cards. Okay. So yeah, we're kind of just doing it. We're doing everything we want to now. We can use the repeal if we want to, basically just to draw a card. The way we do that, we play the Opal, and then we just repeal for 0. It's essentially just a free card draw in this spot. And you can see the Storm is already accumulating. Paradise Mantle is actually the best equipment we can draw here, because what we can do is we can equip that to the Sram. That's going to give us an additional mana. Replay the Opal. Could actually play another creature here, which I think is right to play another creature. Just allows us to get 3 draws off the sigil. Pretty low chance we're gonna whiff off of it, but it is possible, and this just makes it even safer. And we're still gonna have enough mana with our opals to be able to Grapeshot our opponent. And there's another retract, which essentially locks it up. Now we're just looking for Grapeshot to close the game out. Can always just bounce all of the equipments back to our hand, which allows us to... I mean, we're drawing our whole deck at this point. There's really no way of... We have the ability to draw our whole deck. And yeah, our opponent sees the writing on the wall there. So it was kind of that the first couple equipments. Once you kind of get going, there's really not too much the opponent can do without any interaction. In terms of this matchup, I think it's pretty good for us. Don't think we want Monastery Mentor. We're just kind of going full combo mode. Fragmentize is interesting because it can get rid of like some of the cheaper artifacts that our opponent might play, but honestly we're just not really sideboarding very much here. Reverses are fine, not amazing. I think I'll keep in 2 copies of Reverse Engineer. This deck is kind of fun to play with. Actually, I should say it's really fun to play with a lot of the time, but for the opponent, like just playing a couple Tron lands and dying, I can see how that could be painful. Like that was our turn 3. And turn 3 is, like a lot of times, turn 3 is just it. It's go time. Even off mulligans, like, you can still do it. Just draw a bunch of cards and with your equipments and bounce them back to your hand, and easy. Like, this would be an amazing hand if we just had a creature. We only have 8 of our Sram slash Puresteels, so especially in a matchup like this, we are going to be mulliganing to find them. Unfortunately, this hand, we don't have lands, so we mulligan that, mulligan this one, keep this one. Now, we mulligan a few, we mulligan to 4 here, which is pretty brutal. So we're going to kind of have to get pretty lucky. I think we just have to put Hallowed Fountain, Sram, and Fragmentize on the bottom of our deck. That way we just have, the Spider Silk Net is important with the Sram. We're not really going to worry too much. If our opponent has removal or something like that, for our Sram, we're probably just dead anyways. Land, not a particularly good draw. But we had to keep 2 lands, I think, to be safe. So yeah, they have turn 3 Tron ready to go. Very, very, very unlikely that we can combo off immediately here. Okay, yeah. Fragmentize. Not really gonna do it. So I'm just going to play out Sram. Okay. Couple draws. Not the best. Thought not. Alright, actually we can... if we draw Retract here, that'd be awesome. Retract is definitely our best draw. Okay. Yeah, I think we're dead now. So... rough mulligan. Sometimes this deck just kind of has to mulligan a lot, which we saw. I'm just not even going to worry about the fragmentizes on the play and just go full card draw mode. And this is nice. Yeah, this is what we want. We have a Sram and a Paladin, multiple equipments, 2 lands. Pretty good hand. Definitely keeping it. Like, we can potentially win the game before our opponent has Tron. I think I'm going to play Sram and pass, because if we have both of these in play next turn, it's almost, well, it's pretty insane for us. I shouldn't say it's like an automatic win or whatever when we're going off, but it's pretty close. Like, if they don't have a removal spell here, any land pretty much is going to be insane. Any opal, any equipment. So I think at this point our opponent's just dead. If they don't, it seems like they don't have a card like a Dismember. We can equip the Paradise Mantle there. That gives us an additional land. I should have played the Flooded Strand, actually, just to thin. I'll do that now. And yep, we just have the win now. I'm gonna play out all the equipments before any of the retracts, and make a blue off the Sram. So we still have an additional blue. If for some reason we don't draw an opal, although we're fairly likely to draw one at some point. And once we do, once we get to the full 20 storm, we can just kill our opponent. And there's really no reason to, I don't even need to look at the rest of the cards in hand. I know they're kind of off screen at the moment, but not really too relevant as long as we have equipments we can continue to cast. Let's see what we got here. We do have an opal, which means that we can just play that. We'll go for 21. How's that? Or 20, yeah, 21. We're going to deal our opponent 21 damage here. They can't really have much life gain. The only thing they could have would be like a counter spell, like a Warping Whale or something, to prevent one of the copies. So, yeah. Alright, so we're on the draw, and we have double repeal and some artifacts. Notably, no Sram, no Puresteel Paladin. The London mulligan rule means I'm more inclined to mulligan something like this. Also, the double opal is not particularly good, and we now have a much better hand that we can keep. 2 lands, bunch of artifacts. Yeah, this is what we want. The question is what we want to get rid of. I'm thinking about tossing the opal. Yeah, I think I'm just going to toss the opal. It's close. Everything in this hand is valuable, and we don't know the matchup. If I knew the matchup, I would have a better idea of what we wanted to get rid of. Now I'm just going to play the flats because I think we want to thin our deck, and if we draw, like, we could potentially win on turn 2. This deck can combo on turn 2. It looks like we're playing against, what, like Scape Shift or something? Well, they don't have a Lightning Bolt available, so we're definitely gonna, you know, try to get going here. They do have a Relic, though, which can stop our Noxious Revivals if we draw into a Noxious. But we're gonna dump this stuff out. Did draw a Noxious Revival. And just kind of see where it gets us. Okay, so ended up fizzling. But we can retract next turn. Hopefully the Sram doesn't die, which would suck because we can't actually Noxious it back to the top of our deck. Although now we can because our opponent cracked the Relic. So it's possible that they just don't have anything here. I could also just start with the Reverse Engineer, which might actually be better just because the artifacts are already in play. That being said, if we draw into like a Puresteel Paladin, we may want to actually have the ability to cast that. I'm going to retract. See what happens. If our opponent gets rid of the Sram in response there, that would make things more difficult. Okay, we drew another retract. So decent chance we can win on this turn. I'm not going to fetch, though, because we might potentially want to just play out the Hallowed Fountain. Wow, so many retracts. So I think we're good here. I think we are going to win this turn. Considering our opponent hasn't interacted with us yet, we're fairly likely to draw into an Opal. I know we put one on the bottom of our deck earlier, but we still have, 4 copies of Mox Opal in our deck. And the storm count is climbing up. There's an Opal. That's good. Also, I have not played a land yet. But we pretty much just need the Grapeshot. There it is. I don't think our opponent can have, much in the way of life gain stuff here. Trying to think what they could actually have. I should probably just retract for good measure. So I'll do that before comboing, just to be safe. Or not before comboing. We are comboing, but before Grapeshotting in case. Sometimes I'll just do that as an extra precaution. Play this. And we'll kill our opponent. So they really decks like a Scape Shift deck or whatever our opponent's playing are just not, they need some type, they at least need a Lightning Bolt or something like that they can't just not disrupt us at all. It's not gonna be a winning recipe. And these are the types of matchups that we just don't need to sideboard very much at all, because you saw there in game 1, I'm just going to board a no reverse for Mentor. Mentor is the type of card that we want in the slower matchups, more grindy matchups. But, yeah, this, I assume since sometimes game 1, your opponent just doesn't know what you're doing. And that's pretty valuable. All right, yeah, we can keep this. I mean, 2 lands and a creature pretty much is almost all those hands you're going to be keeping unless it's a really weird situation. Now, one play we can make here is we can just repeal. We can repeal this turn to basically draw a card, which I'm going to do. Just to draw another card. Sometimes you don't have the additional mana later in turns to repeal, so I can just repeal the shield. I'm gonna do it before our opponent. If I was to wait for our opponent to untap there, they could say Ancient Grudge or destroy the shield. So definitely don't want to let that happen. Now this turn, I do think we want to play the Sram and try to play a equipment. Fairly likely the Sram just dies, but we get the trigger off the Sram no matter what here. So we're getting to draw this card, which is pretty valuable. And now we just can stop because we still have the Puresteel to try to... I mean, with the cards in our hand, I would say if our opponent, say they like tap out for some like Farseek spell or like whatever, we're fairly likely to win if they can't kill the Puresteel Paladin. We also just drew a second Puresteel, so we can also just play that. The question is, like, they're not really doing very much, so I'm wondering if we're supposed to wait one more turn to give us a little bit more mana. Like, it seems pretty likely that our opponent has another burn spell, even though they already played one. And I think this is right. I guess they could, like, what punishes us here? Like a Simian Spirit Guide getting exiled for Through the Breach or something like that would punish us. But yeah, it's just very suspicious, our opponent not playing any ramp at all. So maybe here they'll actually cast something. That's exactly what we wanted. We wanted our opponent to search for tomorrow there. So now we get to untap, and we have a little bit more to work with than we did before. Still decent chance that the Puresteel dies to a bolt, but we can then play the second Puresteel, and that could potentially win us the game. So that is what I'm going to try. Go for the Paradise Mantle. This is going to get bolted, I'm assuming. Gets bolted. Alright. So this is a double bolt game, which these games are going to be more difficult. But definitely we can still win here. The question is what we want to do with the Noxious Revival. We could Noxious back the Marsh Flats, which gives us a guaranteed retract this turn. Retract for these 4 artifacts. The other play we can make is just draw a card and equip the Puresteel with these artifacts, and it's pretty hard to kill a Puresteel at that point because it would have 8 toughness. Like, our opponent plays land, Primeval Titan, but I don't think they can kill it. So I think I'm going to take a draw here, a little risky draw. See what we find. Sram. Okay, so is there a chance we could have won there? There is, but there's also a pretty high likelihood, I think, that we would fizzle. So this spot, I think, is still fine. Like, I still think I think this was... I'm happy with the decision, because if we just retract the artifacts here, and then we're out of mana, yes, we could draw... we would have played our land for the turn as well. So, like, I think we're certainly below 50% to win. But we could win there. Here, just having the 8 toughness creature is really, really good. And we can just basically let our opponent do whatever they're going to do with the Titan, and then we untap, and we're almost a lock to win now, because we just play the Sram. We still have this retract. We have the Noxious. We have everything. So, yeah, not really anything our opponent can do here. Drew another retract. In that case, maybe we would have won last turn, because we could have cast another retract. But anyways, we're gonna play this safe and win this turn. Make a blue off the mantle. Retract. Have two things in play, 2 creatures in play, and just go off. Might as well play our land. And just dump all of our stuff onto the battlefield. We have an Opal. So Opal basically makes the retracts free, because you're returning the Opal itself. So it's not actually costing you mana to retract. There's the Grapeshot. Perfect. So I'm just going to retract everything. Everything comes back. And there will be points, by the way, because the Sram has to trigger, but there's points where you just want to say no to the Puresteel trigger, because you can actually just mill out in weird situations. We're going to avoid that happening. And yep, seems good enough. Storm is 18, our opponent's at 18. And this is how the deck wins a lot of its games. Alright. With that Grapeshot. Grapeshot's just the easy way to win. Sometimes after sideboard you have to win with Monastery Mentors and stuff like that. Alright, we won the die roll. We get to play first. We have a pretty good hand because we have a Paladin plus artifacts. So no need to take advantage of the London Mulligan rule with this one. Could be like Merfolk, possibly. So once again, I really like thinning. This deck is a combo deck. So having less lands in our deck before we start playing these artifacts out, super important. Run out the Puresteel. Hope to get lucky. We could just, on the play, we could just win here. It's possible. We'll see how far we get. Monastery Mentor. So we could wait till next turn to continue. But I think I'm going to play one more here. Oh, well, now we have Retract. In that case, I'm just going to try to go for it a little bit. Another Retract. Let's see how far we can go. I think we're a favorite to win here this turn. Pretty solid favorite to do that. Yeah, just so many cards. It's ridiculous. If we just draw the Grapeshot, we just have the win. I'm gonna take the free repeal play. Just repeal the Mox Opal. Do it again. Just in case we draw another equipment before the Retract, it would allow us to draw more cards off of it. And yep, opponent just conceded because they were very dead. So our opponent just played an island and an Aether Vial. Don't really know. I assume that's Merfolk. I mean, we're not boarding in paths or anything like that because we're just trying to combo off. Like, it's another matchup where we basically don't need most of our sideboard cards, I don't think. I mean, if they had chalices or something, we would be worried about chalice, but probably probably just want the reverse over the Mentor. Maybe our opponent's not on Merfolk. Don't really know, but seems like given the two cards we saw, that would be the most likely scenario. So this is one of those interesting hands where we have a land and we can potentially reverse engineer pretty early on, but we don't have one of our creatures, which is the bigger issue. I'm gonna keep this hand just to kind of show like some of the other hands that you can keep that aren't like this hand is pretty far from the nuts, and like sometimes depending on the matchup, I'm gonna keep or mulligan this, but because like we can just draw a bunch of cards and then just not find a Sram or a Paladin. I mean, that happens. There's only 8 of those creatures in the deck, and you basically just need one in play to be able to full on combo out the opponent. But this is the type of hand that against like post sideboard, I think it's better. Like, say we draw just like a random artifact for the turn, we can just play that and just turn 1, draw 3 cards isn't the worst. And our opponent took some deep mulligans. All right. So yeah, we're just gonna pass here and then reverse engineer next turn. We can also bring back the reverse engineer with the Noxious Revival for even more card draw. I guess our opponent could have Curse Catcher. Don't know that we're playing around that per se. I'm just going to run out some of these and try to reverse engineer. I guess I could just play the shield out to play around Curse Catcher. Probably is right to do that. Right, because that counters an instant or sorcery unless you pay 1, I believe. And the reason why it's okay to just kind of aggressively run out the artifacts is because we already have a retract in hand. So we can bounce them back to our hand if we feel the need to do so. And we did draw a Puresteel Paladin, which is perfect. So I'm gonna try to start getting going here and see what happens. Could have a Dismember, maybe. Okay. Unfortunate. Well, in that case, I think we just return. We Noxious Revival the Paladin. Probably should just do that while our opponent's tapped out to make sure it resolves. Probably just going to retract here as well, actually. Playing around like Spell Pierce type cards. I haven't actually played against Merfolk with the Sram deck yet. But it just seems unlikely that they're gonna have a way to kill another way to kill the Puresteel. Of course they could. But considering the vial's on 2, we don't have to worry about Curse Catcher. They could put in a Silvergill Adept, a Lord. There's that Harbinger. So yeah, we return all of this stuff to our hand. Now we're on 7 cards, and I'm just gonna pass with the intention. I mean, we're playing face up essentially. Our opponent knows that on our next turn we are going to try to win the game, and there's a pretty good chance that it's going to work out. They could draw like a bounce spell. Some of them play bounce. Some more focalists. And if they do that, it's not the end of the world. I guess the worst case scenario would be another Dismember here. Just going to play the Opal out. What are they going to put in? Ooh, a Merfolk Trickster. Okay, that's pretty good. I wasn't actually thinking about Trickster. That's why I played the Opal first. And just saved the rest of the artifacts. We'll see if they have something else on the following turn. Because if they don't, we're still fairly likely to just win the game. All right. We're getting going now. We can equip. I'm just gonna equip this for good measure. Play another Cather's Shield. I'm not gonna aggressively be tapping the Puresteel, although probably do just want to get this second one into play. Draw a bunch of cards and win the game. Trying to think what stuff our opponent could have that would disrupt us in this spot. So I think I'm just gonna retract. See if it resolves, which it does. And with our opponent at such a low life total, now we're just kind of looking for that Grapeshot. Don't believe we found it yet. Sometimes you do just have to go through your entire deck for it. So it can be on the bottom. Oh, I think we just drew it. Okay. Sweet. And that's the match. All right, we won our die roll. Sweet. No creature. No reverse engineer. Definitely gonna just ship that. Go to 5. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. This is a pretty bad 5. We have 0 artifacts, 0 creatures. Go to 4. Alright, we're definitely keeping our 4. Think we just have to keep the 2 lands. I mean, this hand would actually be really good if it was 5. It just sucks that we have to put so many cards on the bottom of our deck. Put the opal, one of the shields, and I think just have to put the repeal back as well. All right. Not a ton to work with. All right, could be Dredge. Dredge is the deck Dredge is a deck I'm fairly familiar with. I played it at the Mythic Championship. But I was actually close to playing the Sram deck. I really like this deck, and I think it's pretty good against Dredge. But this hand is pretty bad, because we just had to mull to 4. So we might lose this game. If we draw another, I mean, we can still win on turn 3, right? We've got a bunch of equipments in our deck. We've got repeals, we've got retracts. Any of those draws allow us to play the second Sram, start going off. Now, our opponent drew Conflagrate, though, so that's bad news, because they can Conflagrate the Puresteel, which I think is probably what they're going to do. I shouldn't say they drew it. They milled into it, but they're not going to do that. They're going for a more aggressive line to just Cathartic Reunion, put a bunch of pressure on us, which puts so much weight on our very next draw step. If we draw, if we draw a land or an opal, we're probably just dead. Or that was also a bad one. Should have said that one. That was not one we wanted. I guess our opponent didn't return any of the amalgams, but it's super rough just playing out a creature here because it can just get conflagrated. You know what I'm gonna do? This is kind of loose, but I should have done this before. But like I should have done it before attacks because this gives vigilance. But I'm just gonna equip, and just hold these because we want to. If we draw an artifact on our next turn, like playing out one of these creatures and then just having our opponent conflagrate both of them, I mean that's just game over. And I think we're gonna live another turn, so we get another draw at those cards I mentioned before. Equipment, repeal, retract, any of that stuff. Looks like our opponent is just gonna kill our guy anyway, which is the smart play that they probably should have made the previous turn, but I thought they might not this turn. But now they get all the prized amalgams back. Makes our life a lot more difficult. We did draw something. Paradise Mantle. Spider Soul Net. So I don't know that we're just dead next turn. What we could do is we can just equip our Puresteel with these, take some amount of damage, and then hope to win next turn. And I think that's better than playing out the sigil. The sigil play isn't actually getting us anywhere. We're just gonna hope not to die. I guess our opponent still has a bunch of Creeping Chills in their deck, so that's pretty unfortunate. They did connect on 1 on the Dredge, so that's gonna bring us to 13. They can loam if they want. I think they have a loam. I haven't been keeping great track or anything, but we can afford to block prized amalgam because they can't conflagrate our paladin. Go to 5. We're still gonna have another shot at this. As weird as it is, we're gonna have another shot. And this time we're gonna have, we have a decent shot at it. We multi 4, we have a decent shot at it. Like, the Puresteel gives us an additional mana when we're trying to do this. I'm gonna sacrifice this Flooded Strand to thin our deck. Play Sram. Hope to draw well. Noxious Revival. Doesn't actually do anything here. That was a good one. Oh, yeah. We're in business now. We are in business now. Wow. Did not... And wow, that's just game, I think. Yep, just game. No big deal or anything. Multi 4. And once again, not really sideboarding that much. If we can win on a multi 4 against Dredge, I'm pretty convinced it's a good matchup for us. I guess I could board in like Forge Tender is okay because it stops the lightning axes that our opponent might have, and the conflagrates. So it might be better than Reverse Engineer, but I'm not actually sure because sometimes they just don't have those cards, or you can play around those cards. And the Reverse Engineer just drawing you extra cards is pretty good. So that's kind of a toss-up for me. I'm going to try this. And this is a close hand because we only have one land. The deck doesn't play a ton of lands. I'm going to keep it, though, because worst case scenario, we can try to Reverse Engineer. And like we draw an artifact, we reverse, draw 3 cards, go from there. So I think this hand is fine. Well, it's easier when we just ping the land immediately. So now we're in a spot where we can just turn 2 possibly. I mean, it depends on how we draw. But we might not need the Reverse Engineer. Now, it also depends what our opponent does. Like, if they were to just pass the turn there, that would be worrisome. Okay, loan for no value. Accept that. Alright, we drew another retract. So, we're online now. We're online trying to draw as many artifacts as we can, but with triple retract, we're pretty likely to get there. Just gonna repeal the opal for the free card before retracting. Now we only are retracting 2 equipments, so we're really hoping to draw into more on these draws. Unfortunately, we did not. So this is the fail rate. The fail rate could come into play here, but we're gonna try again. Well, all right. Would have been interesting to see. I think we were still a favorite there, but we could have lost. Our opponent's just gonna concede anyway, so whatever. We'll accept it. All right, last match of the league, going for that 5-0. But we have to start with a mulligan. No artifacts, no creature. Alright, this one we have a Puresteel. Only 1 land. I'm just going to keep, I think, and hope to draw another land because we've already gone to 6. Clearly there's a chance that we just don't draw the land and lose, but I think that the upside, not knowing the matchup, is high enough. Could be our crossroads, so that's probably Amulet, right? Amulet plays that card. We could also draw Mox Opal, wouldn't be the worst. We could do some stuff with a Mox Opal. So land or Opal is what we're hoping for. Even repeal would allow us to draw another card, wouldn't be the worst. Okay. even if we brick one turn, our opponent might not have, you know, a fast amulet kill, so I think we're still alive. Like, certainly, if we do draw the land, we can definitely potentially win that very same turn. Alright, that's a brick. That is a brick. Not going to question the keep, regardless of this result. I think it was right. And I still believe that if we draw a land on this next turn, because I think we're getting another turn, so they can Asusa, play like 2 bounce lands or whatever, but that's still not enough to summon a Primeval Titan, I don't believe. Now they could have, maybe there's a draw where or a scenario where they can like have Pact of Negation, but it doesn't seem like that. Some of the Amulet decks play Path to Exile in the sideboard. Anyways, we need a land or at least a Mox Opal this turn. Okay. Alright, so we didn't get there right away, but we did get there this turn, so we get to start churning through our deck. And the card we want to draw the most here is Mox Opal. Because if we draw a Mox Opal, we can make an additional blue mana this turn. And we drew a Mox Opal. So the swings with this deck are real. They are real. But now all systems are go. And we get to play out our stuff. And then repeal everything back. Which probably is going to lead to a win, especially with another repeal in hand. Yeah, the more equipment, the merrier. Just means we get to return more cards with our retract. So we're gonna get to return basically. You know, if we were to retract right now, we would be returning 6 equipments. But if we keep drawing them, it's just more value. Wow. Still don't have to retract. This is great. I think we are almost a lock now to win this turn, barring something that I'm, haven't thought of. Gonna take the free draw off the repeal now. And retract everything. And yeah, our opponent knows the deck well enough to know that they are just dead there. So seems like we're playing against all combo decks this league. Can't control the matchups. I wish I could show you, some of the discard decks are a bit tougher. But hey, if combo decks are being played, combo decks are being played. I'm going to take out the Mentor, and because we're just the ultimate combo deck, we can combo faster than these other decks. Fragmentize is generally the card I go for here as an answer to the amulets. And I'm just going to take out one of the equipments. I still like having some reverses in our deck. Sometimes the games get a little bit grindier if they have like Path to Exiles or whatever. An Amulet, sometimes it doesn't combo until turn 4 a lot of the games, so you have a little bit more time. So 3 lands, 2 equipments, yeah, not really what we want. I'm gonna ship that on 7. This one, on the other hand, I am gonna keep. But the question is what to put on the bottom of our deck. It's probably just a land. It's close though. Yeah. Early Amulet. We don't have any equipments with this hand. Yet. We're fairly likely to draw them, but I mean, it's certainly possible that we don't. I boarded out one sigil. So if our opponent plays an Azusa this turn, I guess they just have their best draw, right? The best draw the Amulet can muster. So next turn they can play a Primeval Titan. If they have access to one, fairly likely that they do. Considering the deck plays 4 Titans and 4 Summoner's Pact. And also fairly unlikely that we're going to be able to win on extremely unlikely that we're going to be able to win on our next turn here. If we drew Fragmentize, that would be okay. All right. Well, not much to do. Maybe shouldn't have shocked there. I think we're gonna lose to a Titan most likely this turn. So they can, if they summon a Titan, give it haste with the Slayer Stronghold, and then give it double strike. That would be 16 damage. Yeah, so I think I messed up by shocking off that Hollow Fountain. I could have just got a basic. Would have been better. Although, maybe they just don't have it. Sunhome. Nope, they got something. Oh, Hive Mind. Well, whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, each other player copies that spell. They don't have the Pact. So it's just a Hive Mind in play at the moment. Interesting. Unfortunately, there's just... We have drawn 0 equipments. Super unlikely. Can happen. The deck does have a fail rate. It's a combo deck. Our draws in previous games have been very good. This, you know, I'm gonna play out of Puresteel. We can still win this game. Still, our opponent's not doing anything either. So it's a question of, like, we might even be a favorite from here because they don't have a Summoner's Pact or a Titan, and we have more good draws than they do in their deck, I believe. Now, if they just draw a pack, they just win the game, but like the deck, the Amulet deck just has so many lands in it. Now, I don't know that we want to cast the Reverse Engineer, because that would allow our opponent, second Hive Mind doesn't really matter, that would allow our opponent to also draw 3 cards. And that is pretty bad, right? If we draw any equipment here, I think we can turn that into a win. I really do. Retract does nothing. I could Reverse Engineer and try to go off, but I think it's probably better to just play Puresteel and pass, and then just try to win next turn with whatever we draw. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this play. I don't want to allow our opponent to draw 3 cards and then potentially untap it and beat us. But it's dangerous. It's dangerous either way. All right. Get to untap. If we don't draw an equipment here, well, we did draw an equipment, so that's exactly what we wanted. Probably leads to us going off this turn, even just with that one equipment. So now we have another one and another one. Planes. All systems are a go. In fact, we get to retract away our opponent's Amulet, which is pretty nice. I think I might just do that now, honestly. Yeah, play the Opal. We have plenty of mana. Not really worried about the mana. So now we don't have to worry about, I don't know, the Amulet being in play this turn. Probably doesn't matter. We have enough gas to win. So I'm just going to stop drawing off the Puresteel because we only have 26 cards left in our deck. Do a combination of draws and not draws. We're still fine. Oh, that was a mistake. That should be fine, though. Sorry about that. Have to make sure not to do that again and accidentally pass the turn. And we may have drawn the Grapeshot at this point. but we don't have quite enough storm. We'll get there in a minute. Sometimes it does take, you know, a couple minutes to actually just combo out and kill the opponent. Now, I don't think our opponent should just get the one copy of. With Hive Mind, whenever each other player copies that spell. Ooh, how does that work with Grapeshot? Did I miss something? Does our opponent get to Grapeshot us for lethal? Alright, I should probably know how this interaction works. I should have thought about this. So I apologize for not thinking about it. Unfortunately, I don't know how this is going to work. Which is pretty awkward. Because if our opponent just gets to copy the Grapeshot. Yeah, I guess they... I should know how this works. I could repeal one of the Hive Minds and still Grapeshot. I don't know. I kind of want to just see what happens. Whenever a player casts Oh, this is weird. All right. Whatever. I guess I lose if the Hive Mind works in the way that it potentially could, then I guess I just lose. Whatever. I've never seen this interaction come up before. Okay, so it just copies it the one time. All right. Yeah, I wasn't sure if for some reason our opponent would get the Grapeshot copies or not. But anyways,